Stellar Life, mission log number 260.
We are bombarded with concepts and strategies and recipes, like there are millions of books and movies and theories and techniques. And the simple thing is, it's already here in that moment. But as I said, just as a practical, direct experience and not as a philosophy. Because I want people to be really free. And as long as we are comparing content, that's why I'm saying, please don't believe me neither. It's just my invitation for the practical experience. As long as we have to believe, we are dependent. We are not free. Life is a concept. But what we are is free. And what we are is in peace. And there is a happiness that you don't have to fight for. And this is the truth.
Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Get inspired and live out loud. From love, freedom, and success to having it all. Here's your host, coach, speaker, and shining star, Orion.
Roger, you're looking good.
Hello, this is Orion. How are you? Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast, and thank you so much for being here. My guest today is Kai Schliebusch. Kai is an uncompromising heart rebel, an ambassador for the new era of a rising consciousness. Kai is a loving guide through the next phase of human evolution, the practical experience and liberation of our true self. Kai only shares his own experience of more than 20 years of holistic healing and his intense process of spiritual awakening. He guides people worldwide on their path to inner growth, self-empowerment, and through the process of self-realization. Kai says, unconsciousness and ignorance are the real cause of our human suffering, but humanity is in the midst of change. I'm here to build a bridge to everyone now. The time has come when every human being on the planet has the right and the chance to wake up and stop suffering forever. The truth is so simple. Today we're talking about unconditional love, inner peace, freedom, meaning, and happiness, the essence of who we are. And now, without further ado, on to the show.
2, 1, 0.
Hey, Kai, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Orion. Very nice to talk to you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, I'm excited to be talking to you. I was just telling you, I watched one of your recent videos and you're so calm and so soothing. I was like, oh my God, I need some of that. That's I can't wait for this conversation to unfold.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So let's unfold it.
Yes, before we dive in to techniques and your point of views and all that, can you share a little bit about your story and how did you become more awakened and become the person you are today?
Sure, it's a pleasure. Well, I have to shorten it a bit because it's a way of more than 20 years of really practical work with myself, of emotional healing and what we in common call the path of inner growth. And in addition to that, I had I think it was 2015 right now, that moment that completely changed everything in my life, when I had that spiritual awakening. And it's a pleasure to share that a bit with you. I would say everything started quite early, already in my childhood. I've learned, just as a part of my personal story and circumstances I was born in, learn very early to observe people. So first of all, in my personal environment, I paid attention to really every little detail in facial expressions and gestures and the behavior in general. And beside that, I had always that interest in the bigger picture. I had that eagle's eye view of the world. To be honest, I couldn't really understand what I was seeing. It was just confusing and irritating. I remember one evening when I was watching the news with my parents, It was back in the 80s, the time of Cold War. I couldn't understand why humanity was so, let's say stupid and divided itself into like two large parties, the red one and the blue one, the good one, the bad one, all the spies and the violence and the missiles and the mutual accusations and the suffering in general. It was really confusing. I had that view from above very early. I just saw the beautiful blue planet with like 6-7 billion little black dots cruising around. And I couldn't, it was too much for me because I already to that time felt pain about it. It didn't feel right. So, and at first glance, until today, it's seemingly nothing has really changed. But what I have learned from my path is from a higher perspective, everything is really, really okay, because that madness and the pain that we have caused ourselves by being identified with our ego is actually leading exactly to this evolutionary shift in collective human consciousness that we are currently experiencing.
Did you have any events in your life that shifted that perspective?
Yes, it was in 2015, as I told you. And when I, in that moment, could see Jesus Christ, I'm just the neutral observer of everything that is happening. And I'm neither my thoughts, I'm not my body, so I'm not the doer. It's just life unfolding itself, completely free, or it's sabotaged and perverted by being identified with my conditioned thinking, which we all do have, coming from our upbringing and the conditioning in society, in kindergarten, primary school, and everything what we have done in our lives. And when you practically feel that our essence is truly love and compassion, and that our suffering is literally just a misunderstanding because we are identified with a protection mechanism and we are running around as what we are not, actually. And the truth, what we really are and what we are all trying to reach is already here. It's beyond that mental construct, beyond the thoughts and the feelings. And this is what my heart actually wants to share. It's everything already here in this moment. I know it doesn't feel like that, but it's the truth. But we cannot understand, Orion, per intellect what we are. The true self is not a concept. The funny idea is that our self is like an object that we have to find. But doesn't make sense, right? So it doesn't make sense that you have to go like 5, 8, 9, 10 steps to get where you already are. And just the identification with our conditioning, with our conditioned thoughts, makes us believe that we are that person of flesh and blood having a life. So this is Orion here, the body you see in the mirror every day with the name and the birth date and the star sign, having a life. So you were like thrown into it. Nobody really asked you if you really want to join the party, yes? And then you have to deal with it. And we are bombarded with concepts and strategies and recipes, like there are millions of books and movies and theories and techniques. And the simple thing is, it's already here in that moment. But as I said, just as a practical, direct experience and not as a philosophy. Because I want people to be really free. And as long as we are comparing content, that's why I'm saying, please don't believe me neither. It's just my invitation for the practical experience. As long as we have to believe, we are dependent. We are not free. Life is a concept. But what we are is free. And what we are is in peace. And there is a happiness that you don't have to fight for. And this is the truth. And this is what came step by step from that moment of awakening.
Mm-hmm. So you said you don't need to go find yourself because you're already here. But it seems like everybody is looking for themselves or a way to elevate themselves or become a better version of themselves.
Yes, I know. Yeah, they are talking about versions and rising frequency and all that. That's why what I call the synthesis of Eastern wisdom and Western psychology. If you have a closer look, those two worlds, let's call it. In the West, we have that, or we are assuming, as I said before, that we are a person having a life. So we are separated. In the East, we are that spiritual being, what we actually really are. But the problem is the physical body in that approach is just the bad evil we have to transcend, right? And this is, to be honest, if we don't have a really grounded and conscious companion, can be the direct path into psychiatry. Because if we haven't learned to contain and to hold all those emotions coming up, that fear and panic and desperation and all that, we are completely lost. And what I came to learn and understand on my path, that, and what I want to offer as a bridge to every human being on the planet, is that we are actually have to combine both and can really practically confirm that both is the truth under the line. We are the spiritual being, we are the life energy unfolding through that physical body spontaneously, referring to its own destiny, what we call like inner voice, where we are led by intuition. And we have also that human being, that physical human being making that human experience. So, and within that experience, we start as a baby and we have natural needs. And if those needs are not met, we have a problem. We have that need for being safe, for being seen, for being mirrored, accepted, appreciated for what we are, right? And from that time, the conditioning starts, because I think there's nearly no one on the planet that had like two Buddhas as parents, right?
No, I don't think so.
I can't remember. And the problem is, if those natural needs are not met, we start really adapting ourselves because we need that acceptance. We need that appreciation. It's not really coming from the heart. We start sabotaging ourselves by suppressing the truth, because if mommy or daddy is not in a good mood, and you know, normally with 5, 6, 7 years, you don't get your backpack and say, hi, it's enough. You have to deal with it. You intuitively know, I will die if I don't find a solution. And the solution is, I suppress myself. If you observe babies, they just are, right? Everyone wants to sit next to them and to feel that unconditional love and being. And this is what we seemingly have lost, but it's not lost. It's just covered.
So when the one is covered, and I think most of us are covered with layers of feeling separation and suppressing our emotions and all that good stuff, what are some practical ways we can peel the layers?
The most important thing is that we start to understand that we have the greatest power, which is observing. And we have the capacity and the capability to observe not only what is going on outside of us, but also especially inside. That means we have a chance to observe our inner world. And it's an absolute truth that everything what we experiencing outside is just really a reflection. I'm not talking about that energy and frequency and all that, but literally our perception is really determined by our identification with our conditioned thoughts. And at that moment where and this would actually already are like my 2-3 tips, for you, for people asking what can we do to have a better life. Don't try to solve problems. Withdraw the attention from all the daily conflicts and turn the attention back inward and start just observing what is going on here inside of me. What is my reaction again and again in always the same situations? If it's with my partner, my children, my boss, my parents, my neighbor, my friends, whatever, it's always the same story. We are reacting and are not aware of the fact that it's not the situation itself, that it's not the people around us causing those feelings, causing our problems. It's inside, coming from that process of conditioning over so many years. And if we start observing, my recommendation would be, above all, to ask who is really making that experience right now. Is it really that body? Who am I really? Because, and this is a complete practical approach, right? Everything what happens is observed. Otherwise, you couldn't report about it, right? You couldn't tell me, Kai, there was fear and panic and a problem with my partner if you wouldn't be aware of it. So, who is making that experience? Am I really my thoughts? No, it's not possible. They are arising and fading. If I'm my thought, I would go as well, but I'm still here. Am I my emotions? No, cannot be. Fear is coming, fear is going. So, what is left? Am I really my body? The modern science has proven that literally every cell of our body is renewed every 7 years, right? Mm-hmm. So if I would be my body, I would die every 7 years. And who is then the next one for the next 7 years? And who are you before you get your name? As a little baby, who is that being? Who is that being before there is like the imprint on the head? This is Orion, this is Kai, this is Sophia. So who is making that experience? And by that process, we start getting an inner distance to our thoughts.
And when you say that process, when do you do that process? Do you do it every day? Because I feel like in the heat of the moment, it's really hard to, like if somebody get you really angry or something is scary into you, it's hard at that moment to say, okay, let me absorb the experience. What are my thoughts? What are my emotions? Like, how do you prepare for that moment? So when you're in the moment, you can snap out of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. The point is, depending on where we are in our process and on our path, for sure, we have to start practicing and we have to start somewhere. And my recommendation, if you just open yourself for the fact and the thought, maybe, I'm capable of observing my thoughts and emotions. And I have the chance to make a pause between that triggering stimulation from outside, with friends, whatever, and my reaction, so that I get a feeling for that mechanism within myself, that I see, okay, it's not coming from outside, but the truth is there's coming something from outside, going through my personal filter of perception, and then there's a thought arising about that situation, about that people, like, let's say, talking to me or arguing with me. And then if I cling to that thought, there's an emotion coming. And this emotion is leading to my reaction. So, and as we all know, that reaction is never good. It's always like a fight, and I am right, you are not, I'm better, you are not, I'm more spiritual than you have the wrong God, I have the right God. This is ego. This is our mental construct. And my invitation is just to, whatever is arising, your thoughts and emotions, give them space and start observing, go in an inner distance and start observing what is happening. So for sure, we need help for that, right? But this is normally, if we only in the reacting mode, nothing can really change. You know, I always say, if you have like, maybe you have a little dog in your house, yeah, and he made a present on the floor, yeah, let's call it that. It's ugly and it's stinking, and what can you do? Well, you can put it out, right, in the garden, or you can just lay a new carpet over it. So this would be all the kind of techniques and the positive thinking and all that, which is okay. Actually, everything on that path has its time and justification. Here's nothing better or worse. No one is better or worse. It's just as it is. So, but at the end of the day, when we are growing and maturing and becoming more and more conscious, the solution is not anymore to have the next carpet and another carpet and the blue and the yellow one. So we have to remove all that carpets, all those layers, all those conditioned thoughts, all those suppressed feelings, and got directly to the root of it. And this is our pain that we carry with us for decades, and which is responsible for us reacting and feeling separated from life. And that's why we have to fight in our life to become happy, to become free, to find love, to come in peace. But as soon as we start turning the attention inward and getting an inner distance, then we might come to that moment where we have contact with that stillness, with that what is always here, always available, and which is persistent. This is actually that what is experiencing everything. This is the surrounding. This is the space within which life is unfolding.
Do you have any daily rituals that you do to get to this point, or you just had the awakening in 2015 and now you're done?
No, first of all, you're never really done. One of the biggest misunderstandings is that you have an awakening and then there is no pain at all for the rest of your life. It's exactly the other way around. And this is very important for me because there's a lot of business going on outside on the spiritual, esoterical market, right? And this is very, very dangerous because most of it, it's just not true. The thing is that process is tough. Awakening means simply that you realize yourself as the neutral observer of everything what is. I'm consciousness am. So this is what happens in that moment practically. But after it, everything what has ever been suppressed is coming up layer by layer. This is the picture with the carpets.
I feel like I've experienced the same thing because when I went to India in 2013,
cool.
I had this moment of awakening where I had an out-of-body experience and I felt oneness with everyone and all that.
Beautiful.
But the monks also say that awakening it's not that you get awakened and that's it. It's almost like you glimpse into what's possible. And every time you work on it, you get closer to experiencing that again, but it's not constant. We still, like Wayne Dyer said, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and having this human experience and dealing with the 3D reality of what is quite difficult. It sounds really beautiful in theory to sit and absorb your thoughts and not react, but I feel like in reality it's way more difficult.
It is. And that's why I'm so keen on sharing that, because this is the truth. If we wake up, it just means like having taken a lift and you're arriving in the penthouse, yeah, mm-hmm. and you're passing all those different floors and ways of human experiences, and from above you have a complete overview. You have that complete understanding about that mechanism of suffering, how I call it. But then the process itself is to stay awake, which means that your attention is staying home and not going on vacation every 5 seconds. Like, just this trigger, and that's my mom, and I told you have to do this. And so this is that confusion is coming on that path of self-realization, because all those emotions that have always been suppressed, actually by distracting ourselves with all kind of addiction, with thinking and alcohol and working and
it can be good addictions like workshops and spirituality. That can be an addiction too.
It can.
We can distract ourselves with so many things. Some of them seem to be so beautiful and positive, and yet like a couple of years like COVID happens and people are losing their shit. Even spiritual people, even it's sometimes really hard to deal with what is. Can you give me your perspective on how to deal with what the world is going on right now and with all the fear that is happening?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, any crisis in our life, or what our mind is called crisis, has always to do with a certain kind of loss. And we're losing grip in the outside world. We lose our, let's say, wealth, our property. We lose our job. We lose safety. We're losing someone who was really very important for us in our life. We're losing a loved one, or we lose our health. And in that moment, what practically happens is that our attention is literally forced back to our inner world. And it's forced to become aware and take care of the pain. This is function of pain, actually.
Right.
In that moment where it's really painful, I have to look at it. Yeah. I'm always comparing it. Have you seen The Lord of the Rings?
I have, yes.
Sure. And you see that eye of Sauron, right? That fire eye, that moving around. And I always say, if you take that picture as your attention, and that you yourself have the power to turn that attention. But as long as we are unconscious, that eye is just always fixed in the outside world. And in that moment where we feel again, where we feel the pain, the eye is turning back inward and we start seeing what really happens. And then we are confronted with everything that we were running away from.
Yes.
And this is at the same time the biggest catalyst in our life,
right,
for healing and growing.
So true.
Yes. And Corona, and I know it's really, really hard for a lot of people around the globe. And it's really a big catastrophe for a lot of people, even losing their lives.
Right.
And I know it's very, very tough to see something positive about it, and I don't want to do that. But from a higher perspective, Corona is an invitation and a chance for humanity to wake up, because right now there is no chance for distraction. Okay, right now it's getting a bit better with all the regulations changing, but the last 1.5 years, I don't know how it was in your country, but here in Germany, there was almost nothing possible. People were like locked up in their apartments, and no way, no parties, no dancing, no cinema, no restaurants, nothing.
How did you deal with that? What was your process with all of that?
I think I was lucky enough that I already had that intense process before.
Right.
And that I was working a lot from my home and preparing actually my vision coming into practice and starting recording videos and making the website new and all that. And so I spent anyway a lot of time at home. I had my family nearby, so it was okay for us. But I know a lot of people who are really, really suffering. And I know people that had to stay in a hospital for a couple of weeks, and it was closed sometimes. So I know a lot of, let's say, negative examples. For me, actually, it was okay. And I could observe, especially here in Germany, the discussion and how ego works. This is a great chance to understand our human experience if you take a closer look. Because also with the vaccination topic, you are good and you are bad. This is always that judgment. And Corona hasn't divided humanity. Corona just showed us that we are already divided inside. This is the truth. I can just invite and encourage everyone around the globe, or everyone who's listening right now, to make use of that chance right now to interest yourself for your inner world and withdraw your attention from the conflicts and find that which is always available. And this is not a theory. This is really your direct practical experience. If you start with meditation, for example, just 1, 2, 3 minutes a day to experience that inner stillness, which is always there. And in that moment, you start experiencing that there are no more conflicts. It's just situations, and that you are not forced to react, but that life is finding spontaneously always the right answer. And this is true freedom. Freedom is nothing you have to fight for. Freedom is to realize I'm already free inside. And right now, after Corona, also the business world has changed a lot. So there are a lot of jobs not available anymore. And now I have the chance to listen to my inner voice, to feel what is really my truth. What is my heart telling me? What do I really, really want? The only thing I feel in my heart is that we are much further as a species as it seems. And there's a lot of every reason for hope. But I know the individual process can be very tough. But my advice would be reach out for help. Start observing what's happening. Try to understand what is the mechanism of suffering within myself, and start honoring your feelings. Don't try to suppress. Don't try to push them away. Welcome them, because they are here because they are supposed to be here. Otherwise, they wouldn't be.
Right. Before we started our conversation, you mentioned something about looking at the people that are ruling the world. It's us versus them, them versus us, and they're ruling us, and everything is done to us. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I know that it sounds a bit strange for our conditioned intellect, but in that moment where we have that practical experience of waking up, we come to that clear seeing and understanding that there is literally no guilt, and that everyone out there has just his own story of conditioning, and that everyone is fighting his own inner battle. and that the problems that you're facing outside is just ego versus ego. And as long as we, blaming others for doing what they're doing, we are still trapped. And I know this is very, very difficult to do. If you think about Gandhi and his battle against Great Britain those days, this is actually the same thing. He tried to invite people to see, okay, in that moment where we go into resistance and fight back, this is no solution. The suffering will be even much, much worse. But in that moment where we open our heart, because right now I may be a bit more conscious than the one next to me, and I see the truth out of my own practical path of healing and growing. And I know you're just wearing your own mask, and you have only your own emotional wounds within yourself and your own filter of perception. I know that you don't want to harm me. And the truth is that our true nature, our true self, what we all want to be and all want to find, is in essence unconditional love and compassion. And an awakened person, a conscious person, cannot harm anyone. And this is actually the process we are forced into right now. We have to take the full responsibility, every one of us on this planet, for our own level of consciousness, for our own healing and process of growing.
Yes, because we cannot change. Like if you look at evil or people that are doing things that you perceive as evil, there's nothing you can actually do about it.
Exactly.
You can change them. They have their own journey. Like you can scream and shout and yell and throw a tantrum, but it won't do anything. You can talk with your friends about how bad things are and be really mad about it. But at the end of the day, can you do something about it? The only thing that you can do is to look inside, clean your own inner woundings, peel the layers that are preventing you from shining your light, and then just shine your light in the world and shine your light with others. And this is how you bring in more. It's a ripple effect, because if you shine your light, if you are more positive, truly, not just, I want to be positive right now because this is the right thing, but you find that joy and that childlike happiness, you connect to gratitude, you shine your light from the inside. You are just, by being that person around other people, you already affect them. And that's a ripple effect, because they will get some of that and they will elevate, and the people around them will elevate. And that's how we elevate the world.
That's beautiful. Exactly how it works. And you know why? It's because as long as you are not identified with ego, the other ego has no reason to feel like any aggression and doesn't feel angry like, he wants to attack me. And it's really going literally through that egoic perception and touching directly the people's heart and the people's truth.
And that said, we are being brainwashed with fear through the media. Spending 9 months in Israel and just, because I know hypnosis and I know neurolinguistic programming and I know the language of influence, when I look at the media and what they're doing and how they, I believe, manipulating numbers to support their agenda and to inflict fear in the heart of the people. In the Israeli media, it was 24/7. It's quite hard not to get touched by it or not to be influenced by it. But sometimes when you look at it and you see the illusion, you can deal with it better.
Exactly. And absolutely true what you're saying. And it's the same here in Germany, and I think all over the world, more or less.
So how do you battle those fears? Like sometimes, because I know a lot of time our thoughts are not our thoughts. We receive it from somebody else, or we look at TV programs, and it's called programs because it's programming us. Hollywood movies, TVs, they all have some kind of a hidden programming in it. How can you block that program? How can you block that fear that is being deliberately inflicted on you whether it is to serve an agenda or to get more ratings on the news. Because if somebody will post about saving a cat, nobody will watch the news. We are wired to look for the saber-toothed tiger and for what's bad. So if the news would be really, really good, nobody will watch the news. So on so many levels, we are being bombarded by fear.
My advice would be stop trying to block and not identify yourself with the one who thinks I have to go into resistance, I have to fight, I have to block. Because in that moment, you are also already identified with your ego. And in the moment you try to block, you're already blocked, like inside. Because what you really are, it's like, if you compare your pure being just as the sky, or let's say the sun, I think it's a better picture right now. In that moment where we identify ourselves with a negative thought, maybe in terms of, I have to fight against those bad media guys, blah, 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 blah. We literally become to that dark, rainy cloud. And then we are screaming out, I want to have better weather. Where's the sun? But what we literally need is a change of perspective, that we draw our attention back from that one who thinks I have to fight, I have to protect myself, and turn it inward and to experience, this is my true place and this is safe. And here I'm literally untouchable. But as I said, not as an idea. That's the problem. Now the mind saying, yeah, sounds everything very nice, Kai, but the truth is different.
Well, what came to my mind was that if you tell yourself a lie enough time, you will believe it. And if you'll hear a lie enough time from whatever outside sources, you will start to believe it. And I understand that just going inside and strengthening your own feeling of trust and believing in yourself can make you actually invincible, because you're going to be untouched or less fazed by all this. Yet, we are humans, and it still can affect us.
Exactly. And that's why what I'm telling you is, or what I want to share is, depending on where we are on our path, we have to start somehow, and for sure in the beginning. And if the people listening right now, maybe there's some people saying, Jesus Christ, sounds everything very good and it's nice, but I'm really suffering. That's why my invitation is, start focusing on your inner world and start inviting your emotions, because the suffering itself is just a consequence of being separated from your true self. The consequence of fighting against. If you step in the middle of the river and like against the flow, you feel immediately pressure, right? But the river is not guilty. So it's your responsibility to withdraw your own resistance by not identifying with that thinking pattern, they are evil and I have to defend myself. Just observe, it is as it is. Full stop. There are very, very much unconscious people doing bad things. That's the truth. But the other side of the medal is also that by growing and healing and becoming more and more conscious about the truth, who you really are, is that you're not affected that much anymore by the outside happenings, because you feel that inner connection. You make the practical experience. Okay, I don't have to react. I just can stay put here at my home place and let my thoughts come and go. My emotions come and go. I don't have to react. So I don't have to see you as my enemy. But this is really something which literally changes if you're on the practical path. So in the beginning, just start by turning your attention from the outside world, open yourself for the thought and the possibility that it's happening within myself. Then you lose that feeling of powerlessness. As long as you try to manipulate and change the outside world, you have no chance at all. What you can take care of is what is happening inside, and you can reach out for help. You can learn how to deal with emotions, not suppress, accept, give them space to flow. Then they can come and go. So start learning about the connection between thoughts, emotions, and behavior. Learn to contain, to hold your emotion. Learn to understand what conditioning really is, how it worked, what happened when you were younger. See that reflection in your grown-up life with all your different kind of destructive patterns in business and private life. Start there. And the path itself is open yourself, look in the cellar, facing your demons, facing all the suppressed stuff, and reintegrate it. And then you feel with every emotion you have integrated, you feel more and more complete. And forget spirituality so far. Forget awakening. This is what I'm always sharing. Forget all that, because as long as we are completely unconscious, it's just another idea, and you feel more and more lost. Practically is deal with that what is. Learn to heal.
Learn to heal. Yeah, that's the message.
Learn to heal. And the path itself, awakening, maybe just a few words to that. Awakening is nothing you do. The person cannot awaken. Awakening is from the person, from the mental construct, realizing yourself as pure consciousness. But this has nothing to do with the healing process itself. This is a complete separate process of self-realization with all the confusion coming up. Jesus Christ, I exist. Oh my gosh, I did this all my life and I harmed so many people. At the same time, you feel humility and you're grateful for the chance, for the experience. But this is a complete other process depending on where you are. And no one is better. No one is worse. Everyone out there is just where he or she is. And this would be just my advice. Don't try to fight anymore. Don't try to search any longer. Try to reconnect with what is already here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kai. I really
was quick. Jesus Christ.
I know.
It was a great pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it was a great pleasure talking to you. And before we say goodbye for now, can you share with our listeners where can they find you and learn from you and get coaching with you?
Sure. Well, first of all, we just started a few months ago reshaping all that. But, first it's my website, www.kai, which is Kai, then hyphen my last name, Schliebusch. It's a bit difficult, I know. Sorry for that.
It's going to be in the show notes as well.
Yeah, okay, that's easy. And there for sure you'll find more information about me, my story, my work, the process of self-realization. This is the place where we will publish current events right now, still online, like Q&A sessions and all that. And if Corona will allow that in the next few months, we will also start bit by bit with live events and where we do seminars and retreats and all that. And then for sure on social media, just add Kai Schliebusch and you'll find my Instagram and all that.
Thank you very much.
Great pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you, listener. Remember, don't try to solve problems and turn your attention inward. Ask yourself, who is really making this experience right now? Am I really my thoughts? Am I really my emotions? And who am I? Who was I before I got a name? And with all those incredible ideas and realizations, I would like to wish you a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time.
Thank you for joining me on my mission to light people up and change lives around the world. I hope today's conversation inspires you to step up, go after the life of your dreams, and be who you want to be. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go to stellarlifepodcast.com for show notes, transcripts, and other cool stuff. And please subscribe, review, and help spread the word by sharing us on Facebook and Twitter. Have a lovely day, and I'll catch you on the next episode.